The 1980s changed everything for black families in ways most people never talk about. It wasn't just about music, fashion, or culture. It was about survival. Jobs disappeared, grocery stores closed, and the food that once filled tables with love and tradition started to look different. Families who used to gather around slow-cooked Sunday dinners found themselves rushing through drive-thrus after long shifts at low-wage jobs. The kitchens that once smelled like simmering greens and cornbread now hummed with the sound of microwave timer. This isn't a story about laziness or bad choices. It's about how an entire system shifted, and black communities bore the weight of it in their bodies, their health, and their homes. Supersizing America. When more became normal. In the mid-1980s, fast food chains discovered a formula that would change everything. Bigger portions meant bigger profits. What used to be a small fry at McDonald's suddenly looked like a joke compared to new value sizes being pushed across every menu. A trip to the drive-thru in 1985 meant you were getting portions that were 2, 3, even 5 times larger than what your parents ordered in the 70s. The smallest soda was now practically a bucket, and a burger that used to be filling became the baseline, with double and triple patties becoming the new normal. Black families, already stretched thin financially, saw these supersized meals as a better deal. More food for less money. Kids grew up thinking these massive portions were normal, that a meal wasn't complete unless the fries spilled out of the container and the drink required 2 hands to lift. The concept of enough disappeared, replaced by the expectations that more was always better. You didn't order a small anymore. You ordered a medium because it was only 39 cents more, and that medium was the size of what used to be a large. And the large, that was a family-size portion crammed into a single cup with a lid that barely stayed on. Burgers got stacked higher, triple Whoppers, quarter pounders with extra patties, Big Macs that required 2 hands and still dripped sauce down your wrists, and nobody questioned it. Because if you could get more for less, why wouldn't you? But bodies don't work like bank accounts. You can't just process extra food without consequences. Stomachs stretched, appetites grew, and what used to satisfy a whole family now felt like a single serving. The damage was silent, incremental, and by the time anyone noticed, an entire generation had been trained to expect excess as standard. The invasion of high-fructose corn syrup. It was cheaper than sugar, easier to transport, and food companies loved it. Suddenly, sodas became sweeter. Fruit drinks glowed with unnatural colors, and everything tasted like canned. Kids guzzled down Kool-Aid by the pitcher, not knowing they were drinking liquid sugar that their bodies couldn't process the same way. A single can of soda went from being an occasional treat to an everyday staple, consumed at breakfast, lunch, and dinner. The brightly colored drinks, red, orange, purple, became symbols of childhood, but they were quietly contributing to skyrocketing calorie intake. Per capita consumption of HFCS shot up dramatically in the early 80s, and black communities already dealing with limited food options became heavily reliant on these cheap, hyper-sweet drinks. The sweetness was aggressive, almost addictive, and it was everywhere. In bread, in ketchup, in fruit juice that had never seen an actual piece of fruit, even in foods you'd never expect. Crackers, salad dressing, yogurt. Your body processed it differently than regular sugar. It didn't trigger the same fullness signals. So you kept drinking, kept eating, never quite satisfied. Kids drank 2, 3, 4 sodas a day and didn't think twice, because everyone did. It was normal to have a Coke with breakfast, a Sprite with lunch, and a Pepsi with dinner. The sugar rush was instant. The crash came later, and the that accumulated slowly, invisibly, until clothes stopped fitting, and doctors started using words like pre-diabetic and at risk. The war on fat, and the rise of fake food. In the 1980s, public health campaigns declared war on fats, specifically animal fats like lard and beef tallow that had been staples in black kitchens for generations. Suddenly, the rich, savory flavor that came from frying chicken in lard or baking biscuits with real butter was labeled dangerous. The food industry swooped in with a solution: hydrogenated vegetable oils and shortening like Crisco. Families, wanting to do right by their health, made the switch, not knowing they were trading authentic flavor and nutrition for highly processed, chemically altered fats. That deep, soul-satisfying taste of cornbread made with leaf lard disappeared, replaced by something that looked the same but didn't hit the same. Grandmothers who had cooked with lard their whole lives reluctantly switched to shortening, believing it was healthier, modern, and better for their families. But the quality of the food changed. Meals that once carried the weight of tradition and care now tasted flatter, less vibrant, stripped of the essence that made soul food what it was. The irony: those heart-healthy vegetable oils were later found to be just as harmful, if more so than the animal fats they replaced. Trans fats caused inflammation, raised bad cholesterol, and contributed to heart disease. But by then the damage was done. A generation had grown up without tasting real cornbread, real fried chicken, real biscuits. They knew only the processed version, pale imitations of what their great-grandmothers had made. The knowledge, the techniques, the recipes passed down through generations. Many of them were lost. Because why would you teach your daughter to cook with lard when the TV told you it would kill her? The microwave revolution. The microwave oven became the kitchen envy, and with it came a flood of frozen dinners that promised convenience for exhausted, overworked families. The sound of aluminum foil peeling back from a Swanson TV dinner became the dinner bell for countless black households. No more hours spent standing over a hot stove. Just pop a tray in the microwave, wait 5 minutes, and dinner was served. Kids loved the compartmented ice with their little sections of mystery meat, watery vegetables, and a brownie that never quite tasted right but still felt like dessert. Brands like Kid Cuisine, with their bright blue trays and cartoon mascots, made processed food feel fun and futuristic. Parents juggling multiple jobs and endless responsibilities leaned on these meals, not out of laziness, but out of necessity. The microwave became a symbol of survival in a world that demanded more time than anyone had to give. But those meals, loaded with sodium, preservatives, and empty calories, slowly replaced the nourishment of home-cooked food. A Hungry Man dinner contained more sodium than you should eat in an entire day. The meat was mechanically separated, filled with fillers and binders. The vegetables were mushy, flavorless, drained of nutrients during processing. And the portions, massive, because even frozen dinners had been supersized. Kids who grew up on these meals never learned to cook. Why would they? You didn't need to know how to season chicken or thyme rice when everything came pre-made in a plastic tray. The kitchen skills that had been passed down for generations, how to make a roux, how to know when greens were done, how to stretch a chicken into 3 meals, disappeared. Because there was no time to teach them, and no energy left at the end of the day to stand over a stove showing a child how to stir without burning. Survival meals. Stretching dollars until they screamed. Meals had to be creative, filling, and cheap, which meant relying on whatever was on sale or available through government assistance. Kids grew up eating pancakes for dinner, topped with sugar instead of syrup because syrup cost too much. Hamburger Helper became a weeknight staple, turning a single pound of ground beef into a full meal with the help of powdered sauce and pasta. Ramen noodles, government cheese, canned soups. These filled the gaps when paychecks didn't stretch far enough. These weren't the slow-cooked, carefully seasoned dishes passed down through generations. They were survival meals, cobbled together from whatever was within reach. Families did what they had to do, but the trade-off was nutrition. The meals were high in sodium, low in vitamins, and designed to fill bellies, not nourish bodies. Still, parents made it work, turning limited resources into something that felt like love, even when the ingredients fell. Hamburger Helper wasn't food, it was a chemical experiment disguised as dinner. But when you had $20 to feed a family of 5 for the week, you made it work. Ramen became breakfast, lunch, and sometimes dinner. You'd crack an egg into it if you were lucky. Add some hot sauce to make it taste like something. Government cheese melted beautifully though. It became grilled cheese, mac and cheese, cheese on everything. That orange block was gold in households where milk was a luxury. Pancakes for dinner weren't a fun breakfast for dinner night. They were what you ate when the fridge was empty and payday was still 3 days away. Kids didn't complain because they knew. They saw their parents' faces when bills came. They heard the conversations about choosing between electricity and groceries. So they ate what was put in front of them, and they learned early that food wasn't about taste or nutrition. It was about survival. Target advertising selling dreams to black families. Fast food companies didn't just advertise, they strategically targeted black communities with campaigns designed to make their products feel like a natural part of everyday life. Commercials aired during black sitcoms like The Cosby Show and A Different World, featuring black families laughing together over buckets of fried chicken, or celebrating milestones with sugar and fries. These ads didn't feel like manipulation, they felt like validation, like someone finally saw and understood black culture. Black youth were bombarded with more fast food commercials during their TV viewing hours than white kids, and the messaging was clear. This food is for you, it's affordable, it's quick, and it's out of your community. When a familiar comedian or actor showed up in a McDonald's or KFC ad, it reinforced the idea that fast food wasn't just convenient, it was culturally accepted, even celebrated. The result was a generation that grew up associating fast food not with poor health, but with family fun and belonging. You saw yourself in those commercials, black families gathered around a table, smiling, happy, together, and at the center of it all, a bucket of fried chicken, a bag of burgers. The message was subtle but powerful. Success looks like this, happiness looks like this, and you can have it too for $4.99. When New Edition appeared in a commercial when your favorite basketball player held up a burger, it wasn't just food anymore, it was aspiration. You wanted to be like them, and if eating at McDonald's was part of that lifestyle, then you'd eat at McDonald's. Nobody mentioned that those celebrities weren't actually eating that food every day. Nobody talked about personal chefs and nutritionists. All you saw was the image, the promise, the idea that fast food was part of the good life. When the factories closed, losing time and tradition, when the factories shut down in the 1980s, they didn't just take jobs, they took time. Black families who had relied on stable, unionized work in steel mills, auto plants, and manufacturing floors suddenly found themselves scrambling for survival. Parents who used to work one solid shift now juggled 2 or 3 part-time jobs just to keep the lights on. The kitchen, once the heart of the home where greens simmered for hours and cornbread baked golden in cast iron, grew quieter. There was no time anymore for the intentional cooking that had defined Sunday dinners and family gatherings. Teens came home to empty houses, reheating leftovers or fending for themselves because mama was still at work and wouldn't be home until late. Those sacred Sunday meals where aunties, uncles, and cousins crowded around the table passing plates piled high with love started to fade. Time became the ultimate luxury, and most families just didn't have it anymore. A factory job used to mean stability, one parent working 40 hours a week with benefits, pension, paid vacation. You could plan your life around that schedule. But when those jobs disappeared, replaced by part-time retail and service work, everything fell apart. Now mama worked mornings at McDonald's, afternoons cleaning offices, and some nights at the hospital as a nurse's aide. 3 jobs, no benefits, no security. When was she supposed to cook? The slow Sunday meals required time to clean the greens, time to season the chicken and let it marinate, time to make dressing from scratch, to roll out biscuits, to let the macaroni and haze bake until the edges got crispy. That time didn't exist anymore. So Sunday dinner became Kentucky Fried Chicken, or Urkas, or whatever was fast, hot, and ready. And the recipes, the techniques passed down from grandmothers, they died with that generation because there was no time to teach them. Food deserts. When grocery stores abandoned the neighborhood, as middle-class families, both black and white, moved to the suburbs, the neighborhoods left behind lost more than people. They lost grocery stores, pharmacies, and community anchor. The trusted local grocer who knew your family by name, who'd let you run a tab when money was tight, closed down and never reopened. In their place came corner stores with barred windows, gas stations selling chips and candy, and fast food joints on every block. Fresh produce, forget it. Quality meat, not unless you had a car and gas money to drive miles out to the suburbs where the big supermarkets had relocated. Families on SNAP benefits had no choice but to shop at those corner stores where the shelves were stocked with sugary sodas, instant ramen and shelf-stable snacks that could survive a nuclear winter. The food that nourished generations, collard greens, fresh chicken, sweet potatoes became harder and harder to find, replaced by whatever was cheap, quick, and close. A head of lettuce cost $2.99 at the corner store, if they even had it, and it was usually wilted, half brown, days away from rotting. But a bag of chips, 99 cents, a 2-liter soda, and a box of Little Debbie cakes. The math was simple. You could feed your kids chips and soda for less than it cost to buy ingredients for a salad. And when you're choosing between paying the light bill and buying vegetables, vegetables lose every time. The corner stores knew this. They stocked what sold, and what sold were things with long shelf lives, high profit margins, and instant gratification. Nobody was buying kale at the corner store, but they'd buy hot Cheetos all day. Celebrity endorsements. When icons sold sugar, black megastars like Michael, Lionel Richie, and later countless others signed massive endorsement deals with soft drink companies, using their star power to make hyper-sweetened beverages feel aspirational. The New Generation campaign positioned Pepsi as the drink the young, ambitious, and successful, and kids across black communities wanted in. The commercials were spectacles, high production, explosive choreography, and the biggest names in music and entertainment. Teens didn't just drink Pepsi because it tasted good, they drank it because it connected them to the icons they idolized. Parents bought it because if Michael Jackson endorsed it, it must be okay. The consumption of sugary soda skyrocketed, becoming synonymous with celebration, success, and being part of something bigger. What no one talked about was the sugar content, the empty calories, the long-term health consequence. All anyone saw was the glitter, the music, and the promise of being part of the new generation. That Pepsi commercial was everything. Michael in that leather jacket, spinning, glowing, the music pumping, the crowd going wild. You wanted to be part of that. You wanted to feel that energy. So you drank Pepsi, and you didn't think about the 39 grams of sugar in every can. You didn't think about insulin resistance or diabetes or obesity. You just thought about Michael Jackson, and if it was good enough for him, it was good enough for you. The same thing happened with sports stars. When your favorite basketball player held up a soda, you wanted that soda. When a rapper name-dropped a brand in a song, that brand became part of the culture. It wasn't just marketing, it was identity, and you couldn't separate the two. Keeping kids inside. When playgrounds became dangerous, the streets that once echoed with the slap of double Dutch ropes and the laughter of kids playing tag grew quieter in the night. Next crime, the crack epidemic, and the visible decline of urban neighborhoods led parents to make a heartbreaking choice: keep the kids inside. The freedom to run wild until the street lights came on. A childhood right that had defined generations was suddenly too dangerous. Parents instinctively restricted their children's time outside, and with it went hours of physical activity that had been woven into daily life. The communal names, the spontaneous gatherings, the incidental exercise that came from just being a kid in the neighborhood, all of it began to disappear. For children, the command to stay in the house became routine, repeated every day for safety reasons that were all too real. Time spent playing outside by children aged 6 to 8 declined by 25% between the early 90s. What replaced it wasn't intentional exercise, it was stillness, boredom, and the search for something to do indoors. You used to leave the house after breakfast and not come back until dinner. That was childhood. But now, stay in the house, don't go outside. It's not safe. And it isn't safe. Crack had turned neighborhoods into war zones, drive-bys, random violence, bodies on corners. So parents locked their kids inside, and those kids, who would have been running, jumping, playing, sweating, for 8 hours a day, they sat, they watched TV, they played video games, they snacked, and the weight came on slowly, so slowly, nobody noticed until it was too late. Screens replaced streets. The rise of indoor entertainment. The widespread affordability of VCRs, cable television, and home video game consoles in the 1980s gave confined kids something to do, but it came at a cost for youth stuck indoors. Technologies like the Atari 2600 Nintendo Entertainment System, and later the Sega Genesis, offered compelling, engaging alternatives to running around outside. Hours melted away in front of glowing screens, controllers gripped tight,
eyes fixed on pixelated adventures that required no movement beyond thumbs and fingers. Sitting indoors for hours playing games or watching TV established new rituals centered around easily accessible, highly caloric snack foods. Bowls of sugary cereals like Apple Jacks became gaming fuel. Processed snacks like Kudos granola bars, Gushers and chips lined the shelves, marketed as quick energy, but loaded with sugar and empty calories. The couch became the new playground, and the only exercise kids got was walking to the kitchen for another snack. Physical activity wasn't replaced, it was erased, and nothing filled the gap except more sitting, more screens and more food. Curves, hips and a fuller figure were celebrated, appreciated and seen as beautiful. Women often felt a degree of self-acceptance because being a larger size was considered normal, even desirable within the community. But that cultural acceptance didn't erase personal dissatisfaction or the desire to be healthier. Many adults felt motivated to change, frustrated by their weight, and determined to do something about it. But the systemic barriers were overwhelming. Gyms were scarce in Black neighborhoods, and when they did exist, they were expensive or unwelcoming. Adults expressed frustration over the lack of local exercise programs, the need to travel 40 minutes just to find a structured fitness class, and the absence of safe spaces to walk or jog. The systemic barriers in their neighborhoods, lack of facilities, no transportation, unsafe streets, made exercising as hard as obtaining fresh food. Cultural acceptance provided emotional relief, but it couldn't overcome the structural neglect that made healthy living nearly impossible. Conclusion: the 1980s didn't just change what Black families ate, it changed how they lived, how they moved, and how they saw themselves. The damage wasn't intentional, but it was systematic. Bigger portions, cheaper ingredients, targeted marketing, disappearing jobs, vanishing grocery stores, unsafe streets. Each factor alone might have been manageable, but together, they created a perfect storm that reshaped an entire itiner's relationship with food, health, and survival. This isn't about blame. It's about understanding what happened so we can finally start to undo it.